Now, remember I talked about there are some very specific ways on buildings that are very large, which I just talked about, those 3 laws. Those are the buildings that are over 50,000 square feet or more. But what about all the other buildings? So to create a new green baseline, you have to have your own energy code. I heard some people talk about it earlier, which is to say, what are your standards? Who sets the standards? What's the minimum? Well, we're not going for the minimum. So in the building code in the United States, there is already a minimum. So what we need to do is we need to have control of our own energy code, and that might be an option for you. As a municipality, you may decide that you want to change and strive higher. Many of the Chinese leaders talked about that today. And this is exactly, we are in line with what they're talking about, is to move our market, to create a new baseline. You have to do it through requirements. We got together with the USGBC, scientists, experts in the field. We have 100 recommendations of how we might, what I'll call, green our code, to raise the standard. Maybe they're small things. They're not requiring people to put solar panels on their roof, but there are small things that we can do that can have a huge impact if we do them a lot of times over a lot of renovations of all those existing buildings. So remember, it's doing some very targeted things, and in your particular area, you may have some different requirements. But the story is still the same, I think, is to raise some minimum standards to a greener standard across the board for everyone, and then do something strategically based on what the data tells you. This is our timeline. We're in the midst of implementation. City is taking the lead, leading by example. We've done our benchmarking for all of our buildings through that online federal tool that I talked about before. And the key is that we're going to post that information online for everyone to see, right? Because the public wants to hold government accountable. But the other thing is that when we start to post it for private buildings, people will make different business decisions when they're making a lease, when they're buying a building. And we think that this will have long-term value. Lots of challenges here. This isn't easy. We all wouldn't be in the same room if we could just do it, right? So one of the things that we need to talk about is ways to get it done. One of the areas that I think someone talked about earlier today is getting a consortium, getting business leaders in a room, getting them all to agree to go down a particular road. Remember, shooting for the stars and not getting anything isn't always the best policy. Trying to get good reform is a way to bring you towards what your main goal is. I call it get your nose under the tent. Try to make some headway. Once you get people there, they're going to help you. The other piece is making sure that government takes on the responsibility of training. We have to get to architects, engineers, construction people. I always tell the story. My hot water heater broke. I'm not home. I get the phone call, and the plumber is in my house telling my wife, you don't need a direct hot water heater. Just buy the old thing. It's cheaper, and I can get it done today. Well, that's the point, is that if she didn't make the phone call, we didn't talk about it, she might not have known. So any one of my neighbors on the block, the person who's selling them that piece of equipment isn't giving them the other option. So you have to get directly to the guy who's paying the bill. And you have to show them some options. So we have to educate. So in conclusion, you got to reduce the energy expense, which we think this will do. We're going to increase building value. Net present value of a building is based on expenses and revenue. If you can reduce the revenue line and not just pass through the expenses to the tenant, those buildings will actually become more valuable in the long run. And of course, the end game, which we all know and we all want to do, is we want to improve the quality of life on the street, no matter what city we're in. So, I want to tell you that we think that there's a lot to be learned, and there's a lot that we can do. And we certainly think that if we do it together, we will make a big difference in the short and long term. There's 2 things that I'd like to tell you. So if you want a copy of the presentation, we have a limited supply of flash drives, and Amanda is somewhere over there, and you can get them. And I really would love to talk to you today if you have some specific questions, and maybe you and I could learn something together. Thank you very much.